Well, here is a story about an old man, and I will tell you his name. Old Man. That's the only name I ever heard for him, just Old Man. And he had a wife. You can probably guess her name. Old Woman. Old Man and Old Woman had lived together as husband and wife for many years, and they felt good about the years they had together. But there was one thing that made them sad. They didn't have any children. Many times they wished they had a child to bring some happiness into their home. Well, every day, Old Man would go and gather firewood out by a mountain they called the Sacred Mountain. He would bring the wood back into the village. Some of it they would use to heat their house in winter. Some of it they would use to heat the oven that Old Woman baked her bread in. And then the rest of it they would trade with people in the village for things they needed, like a shirt or a pair of moccasins or a blanket for Old Woman to wrap around her shoulders. Well, one morning when Old Man got out to his favorite wood gathering place, he heard the sound of a drum. Boom, 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 boom. He thought, who would be playing a drum way out here by the mountain? But he had come to do work. So he listened for a little while. Then he gathered a good load of firewood and he went home. When Old Man arrived at his wood gathering place on the next morning, he heard the sound of the drum again, and it was louder this time. Boom, 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 boom. But again he remembered the work he had to do. He listened for a while and then gathered his firewood. When Old Man arrived at the wood gathering place on the third morning, the drumming was really loud. It seemed to be coming from all around him at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. And when he arrived at the wood gathering place on the fourth morning, the drumming was not so loud, but it seemed to be coming from right in front of him. He walked toward the sound of the drum. There was a hole in the ground. In that hole, he saw a fine-looking young boy. The boy was wearing a beautiful dance costume. He had on buckskin moccasins. He had skunk fur and bells tied around his legs. He was wearing a dance sash around his waist. He had a finely woven white shirt on. He had turquoise beads around his neck. He had a fox fur tied behind him. He even had a parrot feather in his hair. And he was playing a drum and dancing to the sound of the drum. Old Man looked at the boy and said, "What a fine-looking boy you are." And the boy kept playing his drum. He kept dancing, and he said exactly what Old Man had said. "What a fine-looking boy you are." Old Man was surprised by that, but he knew sometimes young children will say surprising things. He said, "What are you doing way out here by the mountain?" And the boy said, "What are you doing way out here by the mountain? And then Old Man said, I think I'll take you home with me. I think I'll take you home with me. Old Man wrapped the boy up in his blanket. He carried him back to the village. The whole way back to the village, Old Man could feel the boy's legs dancing up and down inside the blanket. He could hear the sound of his drum playing. When Old Man got home, his wife came out of the house. She said to him, Why didn't you bring any firewood? And from inside the blanket, the boy said, Why didn't you bring any firewood? Old Man unwrapped the blanket. He said to his wife, I found this boy out by the sacred mountain. I found this boy out by the sacred mountain. Old woman looked at the boy and then looked at her husband and then looked back at the boy. She said, He says everything we say. He says everything we say. And Old Man said, Yes, let's call him Echo Boy. Yes, let's call him Echo Boy. They took Echo Boy into the house. They washed him and they fed him. All day long they sat admiring him as if he were their own child. When nighttime came, Old Woman took Echo Boy into a room and she showed him a bed spread out on the floor. She said to him, This is where you will sleep. Echo Boy said, This is where you will sleep. But Echo Boy didn't sleep. All night long he played his drum and he danced. And in the next room, Old Man and Old Woman couldn't sleep either. The next morning, Old Man looked at Old Woman with tired eyes. He said, This Echo Boy is very strange. I think I'd better tell the wise old men of the village about him. Old Man went and told the wise elders of the village about the boy he found out by the sacred mountain. And they told him to bring Echo Boy to meet them in the kiva. When Old Man and Echo Boy arrived, all of the wise elders were sitting around the edge of the room. Echo Boy stood in the middle of the room, playing his drum and dancing. One of the wise old men looked at Echo Boy and said, Maybe our enemies have sent this boy. And Echo Boy said, Maybe our enemies have sent this boy. Another one said, Maybe this boy is a witch. Maybe this boy is a witch. Another one said, This boy is crazy. This boy is crazy. And then the wisest of all the elders spoke. He said, This is a spirit boy. He should be taken back to the sacred mountain. Echo Boy stopped playing his drum. He stopped dancing. He didn't say anything. And that's how everyone knew the wisest of the elders had spoken the truth. Old Man wrapped Echo Boy up in his blanket again and carried him out to the mountain. The whole way out there, Echo Boy didn't make a sound. When they arrived at the mountain, Echo Boy told Old Man that from that day on, if anyone from the village was in great need of some kind of clothing, and if they were poor and they had no way of getting it, all they had to do was to come out there to the mountain and call out for whatever it was they needed. And then in 4 days, the clothing would be waiting for that person in need. From that day on, if someone in the village needed a shirt, or they needed a pair of moccasins, or they needed a blanket, and they were very poor, they would go out by the sacred mountain and they would call out, "I need a blanket," or "I need a shirt." From far away, a voice would answer back, "Blanket," or "shirt." And then in 4 days, the clothing would be waiting for that needy person. But all of this happened a very long time ago. I don't think there is anyone living today who knows how to find Echo Boy's special place out by the sacred mountain. If there is, they're not telling about it. If I find out where it is, should I tell you? Do you know how to keep a secret? Really, truly, do you know how to keep a secret? You do? So do I. I will never tell you.